There they are. Pinal City hasn't been on a map for over 100 years. But searching for old documents online, I found this 1884 Arizona Territory map that shows us exactly where it used to be. Unfortunately, there's not much left of the town. But if we follow the path that led between the town and the Silver King mine, 5 miles to the north, there's a lot of interesting things left to see. In today's episode, we're following the trail of miners and pioneers who, as we will see, did not have it easy out here. Today's trek begins on the US 60 highway, headed east from Apache Junction, Arizona, in Pinal County. Pulling off the highway just south of modern-day Superior, Arizona, and we're going to take this dirt road off to the right here that's just north of Picketpost Mountain in the background. That sign you see is no joke. It may not look like there's much to burn out here in the desert, but what there is to burn is very dry and it goes up in flames very quick. Supposed to make a right here, but unfortunately the trail is all blocked off with these boulders, as you can see. Now you can hike past them, and it's not that far of a hike. It's just over the hill you can see in the background there. But thankfully for me, I came prepared for this problem. I found a nice place to park my truck because I couldn't just leave it on this trail here. Especially because people still use this trail. They'll take their Jeeps and side-by-sides and just find other ways to get around it. But as you can see, the washed out areas like this get really rough. The rest of it, however, is pretty smooth. We're almost there. We can tell because we're starting to see a lot of this white rock on the ground underneath us. That's pearlite. It's volcanic glass that as it cooled mixed with water and created this white stone. And what we're looking for specifically should be right behind us here. There it is. These are wagon wheel ruts from the 1870s silver mining, carved into the volcanic glass. This is my first time visiting this location, and I wasn't expecting to see these holes or divots or whatever they are running right down the middle of the tracks. They almost look like metates. Obviously that's not what they are though. Anyone watching the video, I'd be curious to know if you know what those are. The tracks seem to go on for a while, and there's some areas where they're really deep. You can just imagine the weight of that silver ore bearing down on those wagons, getting dragged along by the mules. This was before the days of narrow gauge railroads, which would have easily connected the mine to the town 5 miles away. You can hear all those cars in the background, and that's because the little drive we did was a big loop that took us pretty close to the US Highway 60 again. Although I must tell you, there's really no easy way to get here right off the 60, regardless of how close to it we are. This seems to be the deepest area here, and then after that it looks like we run out of that volcanic glass and it just turns to desert sand. There's more to explore as we follow these tracks north towards the mine. What we're looking for next is right on the other side of the highway, but we're going to have to take some more dirt roads to get there. Making my way back to the truck, and I stopped to look for something and I accidentally let this thing get me in the leg. Rookie mistake out here that usually does not happen, but it got me today. And the reason I stopped is I'm looking for some obsidian glass. They call these Apache tears, named after the old legend of the Apache leap. You see that? I think that's one of them. It's hard to tell. There's a lot of broken glass bottles out here, but this is definitely one. We can tell if we hold it up into the light, it's gonna turn from that dark black color to a much lighter see-through glass color. And that's what, I'm not sure if I can get it on the video. I'm gonna try to hold it up and see if you can tell here. I looked around for more, but I can't find any. There's 150 years worth of broken glass bottles here, that some of which look like the Apache tier obsidians. But we got really lucky finding this first one right away. To be clear, these Apache tier obsidians are really common around here. It's not a rare thing. It's just that you don't really find them in areas like that. When there's 150 years worth of broken glass beer bottles, there's 150 years worth of people picking those out of the ground from that exact area also. But if you get a little off the beaten path, you can find dozens of those at a time. Really big ones too. What happens is that pearlite is the volcanic lava that cools and mixes with water and creates that white color that you get. But some of the volcanic lava does not mix with water, and those small pockets that stay a much higher silica content, that's what becomes the Apache tears, like that little one that I found. At least that's my best understanding of that. Again, anyone with any real information or knowledge on that, please feel free to add to the comments. We're coming back up on the US Highway 60 again. And where we're headed is to the old Frontier Cemetery. It happens to be the final resting place of someone whose name is more commonly associated with another old western frontier town. She's even been portrayed in movies. There's Picketpost Mountain again. And here's the last turn we're going to make. That's going to take us right to our destination. The Historic Pinal Cemetery. This is the grave of Celia Blaylock, aka Mattie Earp. When you hear that name, you immediately think of the gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona. But the desert has a way of preserving stories, including the parts that Hollywood leaves out. She was Wyatt Earp's common-law wife, and when Wyatt left her for Josephine Sadie Marcus, Mattie ended up here, in Pinal City. Alone and nowhere to turn, she fell back into her old life, providing companionship to the local mine camps. It's a heartbreaking end. In July of 1888, she was found dead in town, right where we just were earlier this morning. The cause was an overdose of laudanum, a common but lethal mix of alcohol and opium. It's a stark reminder that while the western frontier is often glamorized as being built on adventure, for many, it was endured in desperation. As you walk through what's left of the Pinal Cemetery, you realize it isn't an organized graveyard. It's a collection of rock piles and weathered markers, slowly being reclaimed by the Arizona desert. Pinal City was a town built on a dream of silver. It lived and breathed for the Silver King mine. But by the 1890s, the silver veins were drying up. The world was moving on to copper, a shift in the industry that still defines this region today. But for the people who lived here, there was no next big thing. They lived hard, they worked harder, and when the ore ran out, they either moved on to the next boomtown, or they stayed here forever under these rocks. Thanks for coming along with me today. I'm Rich, and this is Relic Roads. I'll see you on the next one.